Hello, my dog lovers and other people, because today we are actually here for human nutrition. I got really excited this morning when I was preparing this Facebook Live because it is such a cool topic. It obviously connects indirectly to our dog's health as well. I'm a true believer that healthy people have healthier dogs. Not necessarily that you should blame yourself for anything that happens in your dog's life, but from my experience, it is very, very common that if people have certain health problems, then their dogs almost copy them or mimic them. So today I prepared human nutrition part two. And in the first part, I kind of talked about my life and how I created a good life on the level of logistics and planning and all that. But healthy food and healthy diet has been a big part of my life. And not that I want to kind of say I'm always eating healthy. It has been a real exciting topic for me. I get excited every time I talk about nutrition, whether it's dogs or humans, because food is actually the biggest medicine. And most of the things that and problems that we deal with in medicine, whether it's animal or human medicine, can be at least prevented partially or fully by healthy food. And so many people ask me, Peter, what do you do? Or I have our friends coming to visit with us, and they live with us for 1 week or sometimes 2 or 3, and they're stuck with COVID for several months, which happened to our friends in Maui. And what happened as a result of that, I noticed how transformatory the visit was for them. And I didn't even acknowledge that I was doing anything special. And suddenly, from people who drink Coke and go to McDonald's, we had these amazing friends who were feeding or cooking healthy food and eating healthy and looking so much better than when they came. And so I thought, okay, by profession, I'm a veterinarian, but I'm also a doctor, and I've learned many different animals, and adding one more animal on the spectrum, which is human, and from the point of nutrition is fair, because I'm a human and I had to learn about food and nutrition myself. So I will be kind of flipping between sharing a screen and being on the video. I have not prepared really detailed slides. Sometimes I have time to prepare a lot of pictures and materials, but this time there was so much that I just barely made some of the slides for you to navigate and orientate in them. So let me just start sharing screen. It shouldn't take very long. And just bear with me for a moment. Okay, I think that's it. Anyway, so these are our friends, Pavel and Veronica, who came from the Czech Republic to visit us in Maui, and then they got stuck there for 3 months with us. And when we were leaving, and they were still there because they still didn't have flights, it was really fun to see. And they were the triggers, and I'm really grateful to them. When it comes to human nutrition, I know that many of you start kind of thinking about diet and how to keep the right body weight, an ideal body weight. And it is not easy because there are so many different dietary trends and fads, and one really doesn't know what to do. And I must say that I was a little bit of a victim of trying to follow the gluten-free diet and the low-carb diet and the paleo diet. And I tried keto for a very short time. And I never felt that my body was really functioning at the optimum. So one day, I went and searched for audiobooks and came across a book which was called How Not to Diet. And that book is written by Dr. Greger, Michael Greger, I believe his last name. And Alicia is nodding, so that's good. And that book basically confirmed what I've learned and what I believed in my whole life, and what worked the best for me when I didn't follow some of these trends. And I see so many of my friends and people in my life struggling with their body weight. And to be honest, if I say 6 months ago, I wasn't necessarily heavy, but I could see how my body starts to get congested, and I was having a hard time to maintain my body weight. And I could see it creeping up a little bit, thinking, man, like I'm exercising, doing everything that I can and eating relatively well, and it's not working anymore. And because I'm 56, I needed to figure out how to actually get back to my normal body weight or ideal body weight. So, in dogs, we say that we can feel our dog's ribs and hips, and we know where they're at. I'll show you a little slide that we use for um, assessing body condition. Healthy weight in dogs would be that you feel the ribs, you can feel them, you feel the hips, they're muscled, but there's not excessive fat, and you can still feel the bones. And, funny enough, this particular chart, if you want to take a screenshot, this particular chart could kind of apply to us humans. But, there's a difference between needing to be slim just for the statement's sake or fashion's sake or whatever, and being healthy. So I don't think that good body weight should be the one that models display on runways. I think that we've had enough of that, and I think that there is general consensus that that may not be healthy at all. But good health is vibrancy. Good health is strength. Good health is happiness and joy and feeling like your body is working. And as we age, it actually does take a little more effort. And sometimes it is not easy at all. And I will be down the road also talking to you about aging and longevity and what I've been doing and what my family has been doing and who inspires me in that area. But today we're talking about nutrition. So food is about health. Food is about connection and closeness and safety. And it is also about love. If you have Italian Italian family or Czech family, for example, mothers love to feed, and we know it. We know the feeding as dog lovers because we love feeding our dogs. We love feeding our dogs so much that sometimes we feed them too much because we want to tell them we love you so much. So safety and comfort and love, it's hard to resist those, right? How could we resist feeling safe? In the past, thousands of years back, when we didn't have food, it didn't feel safe. And nature basically created us in such a way, an evolution, that we crave food, we crave the safety, and food is safety and love, right? So how can we actually resist those primordial urges and not to eat whatever they give us, whether it's a dessert or have second or third helping? I am guilty sometimes of that. Not necessarily guilty. There is also one thing that I wanted to talk to you about, and that is, that's been one of my kind of primary interests in healthy food. When I was at the university, I was really intrigued because every Christmas, my mother made cookies like these. And, I scoured the internet to find a picture of these Czech Christmas cookies. But we would basically look forward to Christmas because these cookies were just absolutely fantastic. And as a result, every Christmas, I felt really down and low. And I noticed that as an 18-year-old or 19-year-old, I was thinking, what is that? Like every Christmas, it's a happiness time. And by the time I'm finished, I feel like shit. Like, how is that possible? So, that was probably one of the starts of me being interested in nutrition and seeing how food can affect us. And then the other one was that I had acne and I had hay fever. And I noticed that whenever I ate certain types of foods like sweets, that my hay fever actually got worse. So as a 20-year-old, I went to a library and I found a book on macrobiotics, which is actually kind of like a now considered traditional, maybe a little bit older nutritional trends. But I realized in retrospect, 30 years later, 30 plus, 36 years later, that there is a lot of wisdom. And what I'm going to be telling you about and what I've been doing now is actually partially derived from the wisdom of macrobiotics. Not necessarily saying that you have to follow the macrobiotic books, but it is actually part of it. Especially when I was preparing the talk today, I realized that it's so similar. So Christmas depression, you may be possibly knowing or aware that you feel down when you eat badly. As I said in the past, we craved food because it was survival. For wolves, it was craving as well because they need to survive. So nature needed us to crave food. Today's dogs, they have as much food as they want, most of them, except the homeless ones. And we try to do our best. I know you do too. But generally, food is quite abundant. And the question is, if it's abundant and if it's so easy to get it, and we get over our optimal weight, is it genetics or is it calories? Is it our genes? Shall we blame our genes or the calories that we take? And the answer is somewhere in the middle, because similar to other animals than humans, some have a tendency to be a little heavier, some have a tendency to be a little slimmer. It definitely is metabolism. But there's one interesting question that I'd like to ask. Does your car go without gasoline? No. Do people who starved get heavy? No. So if we have a low or high metabolism, the fact that we are not able to maintain normal weight may be that we are eating too much of food or wrong food. And I'm just going to actually make an excuse for all of us when we eat too much, or if you're not optimal weight. It is not your fault. The problem is that there's so much misinformation out there about diet and food and what we should eat and what we should not eat. And they say that the food industry is actually the founder of fake news, that they have basically taken every single thing to make more money from whatever they are selling. And it is very confusing, especially if you're not a medical professional, but I know many doctors who are having problems with diet. In fact, I don't really know any doctors in my world who would give me nutritional advice, except the naturopaths. So there's a big gap. There is a problem with misinformation, but also a big gap on the level of how to sort this confusing information. So optimal weight can be achieved by the right number of the right calories. And I'll tell you why I'm saying the right number of the right calories, because it's not the same if you eat 4 cups of carrots and 1 bottle of Coke. However, it is the same on the level of calories. It will take you a long time to actually chew up 4 cups of carrots, and you probably will finish after 1 cup, but you can guzzle down a bottle of Coke with no problem. And it's about the same amount of calories. So there is a difference. The food industry made us believe that calories are calories and that's it. But there's a difference, because the veggies and the fruits and the whole foods are like grain. They have a lot of fiber, and some of the calories are locked in the fiber. And you know what happens with the fiber? It ends up in the toilet bowl. And it's better to have calories around our hips or in our belly. Sorry, no, the opposite. It's better to have it in the toilet bowl than around our hips and our belly, if you know what I mean. So it's optimal weight can be achieved by the right number of the right calories, and you have to be kind to yourself, because you have been given some sort of genetic predisposition of metabolic qualities, right? Some people can eat anything and they will always be slim, and others will eat very little and they're not as slim. But I also noticed that there is this kind of energy of denial. if we kind of deny ourselves or basically prevent ourselves from really acknowledging that we may have a problem with eating too much ice cream or too much chocolate, which is my problem sometimes, then we are actually our worst enemies. The first step is to say, okay, I'm eating too much of the wrong food. It's so interesting that I have some of my friends who would like to lose weight, and when I go to a restaurant with them, they eat very little. But then when I spend 2 weeks with them, let's say on holidays or somewhere, then I really see their food patterns, or I go to their home and I see what they have in the fridge. And then it becomes clear that the restaurant order is actually totally just a dissociation from the problem as well. So again, be kind to yourself. This is not to lecture you on what diet we should eat if you make a decision, but also it's not to lecture you on optimal weight. It's about helping you if you are actually trying to make a difference in your life. And if you need it, if you think that you need it. This morning, I calculated my body mass index because I was really curious, because that's the best indicator whether you're in the optimal level. So it's body weight in pounds times 703 divided by height in inches and divided one more time height in inches. So I give you an example. I am 160 pounds times 703 divided 72 inches and divided 72 inches because I am 6 feet, which is 72 inches. And then you get your body weight mass index. So we talked about the calories and not being the same. And now I'd like to talk to you a little bit about fasting and eating rate. I have done quite a bit of reading on that topic. And what has worked really, really well is reducing the number of hours that you eat every day. I start eating at 11 and finish eating ideally at 7. It would be better at 6, but time goes fast. I skip breakfast. In the past, we were taught that breakfast should be given, but there is one reason for fasting. Number one, in nature, if we were living 10,000 years back, we would be fasting once in a while. Dogs fast as well. And what fasting does, it actually promotes longevity genes. There's a community, there are several communities around the world where, a large number of population from those communities lives over 90 years old. In Japan and Greece, there's one, and you can do some research. The fun part is that these people actually quite often fast, and they obviously have a healthy diet. And some people are lucky that they eat anything they want and they will live until 100. They are very lucky. They had the genetic lottery. They won the genetic lottery. But for the rest of us, we actually have to do a little bit of work. Now, fasting induces what it's called FIAF. And FIAF, I'll share the screen for you so you can actually have a visual, is fasting-induced adipose factor. Well, basically, fasting signals the body to make the switch to burn fat. And some bacteria, actually, this is kind of interesting, represses the FIAF, meaning that some bacteria and unhealthy bacterial flora will actually make us heavier and will prevent us from burning fat. And the unhealthy bacteria happens when we actually eat a lot of sugar and a lot of junk, because that's what destroys the healthy bacteria. There's also another one, a really interesting fact, that milk reduces FIAF. And it kind of makes sense because you don't want babies to burn fat. You want babies to store fat so they can survive and thrive and grow. But for adults, this is not really a good idea. And, when I go to Europe, I am terrified. Like if I go to a food store, grocery store, there are really seriously like 2 big rows of yogurts and milk products there. And milk, unfortunately, is part of the problem for us not being able to lose weight or keep optimal weight. So this is something that you may have not known. And if you did, now you know a little more. And if you know something else or more, just let me know. I'd like to learn. Um, Fasting also activates sirtuins, and I could talk for an hour of sirtuins because they're proteins that are also activated by fasting, and they are key in influencing all the cell processes, from controlling cell reproduction to DNA repair and health and fitness and ability to resist stress or endure stress. Certains are, they need the NAD, which is an energy mediator, to function. And we lose NAD, and once again, I can't really give you too much detail because we can get lost in it, but the NAD is an energetic compound for mitochondria, which is little tiny components of cells. And we lose 50% of that by the age of 50. But we also can activate these sirtuins by fasting. So this may be one of the reasons why some of the populations and people who fast actually live longer. I have this kind of primitive way of looking at it. We have a certain amount of food in life that we can eat. And when we finish eating it, we die. So we better actually eat a little less so our life is longer. And I don't really know how it is, right? The body's programmed, and I'm just observing what works and trying to study and learn as much as I can and then pass it on to you. Obviously, we'll be using some of these principles, and we're using some of these principles in dogs as well. So there's another component of food that actually increases weight loss, and those are thylakoids. And once again, I'm going to share screen with you just because it may be easier than spelling it. And thylakoids are actually present. They reduce hunger, and they are in greens, and they're in cyanobacteria, and they're also in dark colored fruit. So if you don't want to be hungry, you can eat some salad or kale or blueberries or berries. And even though they have some sugar, we will still end up losing weight. Now, some people think that exercise actually will make up for our calorie intake. They have done research and realized that that is not possible. So if we exercise and then think, oh, I can have the ice cream or the extra cake, you will not exercise the cake out. It's not possible. They have done many studies and research, and it is not possible. So it may actually refocus, and I'm not necessarily saying that exercise is not useful and helpful. Of course it is. And we need to exercise to be strong and have our joints healthy and our back healthy. That is all good, and our heart healthy. But we will not exercise calories out of our body. There are some companies that are suggesting that we should be taking their supplements, weight loss supplements. It's a difference between minerals and vitamins and probiotics and weight loss supplements. They've done some research and assessment of these products, let's say in the big box stores, realizing that 80% of them do not have the ingredients that are listed on the label. And some of them may have just rice powder, and who knows what else. So just to kind of caution you that achieving weight loss through weight loss supplements is probably not a good idea, even just for your safety. Fiber is your friend, is our friend. Beans, whole grains, veggies, and fruits are important. And when I was going through the phase of low carb diet and low grain diet and all that, I thought, okay, I shouldn't be eating too much fruit. And so many people say, don't eat fruit because it has too much sugar. It is unbelievable, since I actually embraced diet of high fiber and fruit and vegetables and beans, that I do not need to control myself how much I eat. And that is the interesting part, that once we actually start eating these kind of foods that have a lot of fiber, even if they have some sugar, it is still better than if we do not eat fiber and the fruit. So, sorry, now I mixed it up. What I wanted to say is we need to eat fiber because and that is much better than if we eat a carb-free or grain-free diet. So going back again, remember, you can pretty much eat almost any natural food, plant-based food, and you will not make a mistake. Some people ask, is juicing okay? I'd say probably not, because juicing actually eliminates the fiber and that component of food that makes it whole food. And then we actually get really a good dose of sugar without the other components of fruit. Or even veggie juices. Like I know that some people swear by juicing, but I try to go with diet that is the closest to nature. So just to kind of let you know that I'm not a big juicer, it's just my opinion. Probiotics. Probiotics are important and beneficial. I said that they may help you lose weight if you have the right bacteria. Many people say that probiotics are fed by prebiotics, and the prebiotics are fiber or inulin. Now, fiber is not the food for bacteria. It does not increase the bacterial count based on research. What increases bacterial count is polyphenols, and they are also in the dark colored fruit like grapes, blueberries. They're also in green tea, and for some coffee lovers, you will be glad to hear that they're also in coffee. So if you do want to increase the beneficial bacteria, you may want to eat dark color fruits. I have gotten in a habit of making myself a blueberry bowl almost every morning with some granola that is really sugar-free or very low sugar. I have tried different breakfasts, and I always feel the best after this kind of breakfast. And I will give you a granola recipe. I just realized we may need to post it because I forgot to put it in the slides. So blueberries, polyphenols, fiber, dark color fruit. I have some grains, and I have some nuts, and I have a little bit of banana for the sweetness. A year ago, I probably would not be eating this kind of food because I would think that it's high in sugar. And since I started implementing this kind of approach to food, high fiber, plant-based, and high grain, I have actually gone back to my university body weight, which is 160 pounds, without any struggle. And it has been so fascinating that that is one of the reasons why I'm here with you and want to share it. Prebiotics. I talked about inulin. Prebiotics are the food for probiotics for the healthy bacteria. Onion, garlic, artichokes, but there's so many other food sources that do have prebiotics. Just to give you a few ideas. Some people who have inflammatory bowel disease actually say that they should not be eating, or they were told that they should not be eating garlic and onion. Personally, I think that it's a problem because it actually depletes and alters their bacterial flora. But if you don't want to eat garlic or onions, then you can have artichokes. You can cook artichokes, very simple method. You can steam it for 30 minutes and then eat it just by kind of, chewing on the leaves a little bit and getting your goodies out. The next thing that I'd like to talk to you about is what foods to limit. And I will present this slide again. It's relatively simple and easy. I want to caution you about something before I show you the slide, actually. When my friends arrive and they spend some time with us, quite a few of them actually laugh at us or find it very eccentric that we do not eat a lot of meat and a lot of animal products. I have the odd fish, salmon or something like that, knowing that it's probably not good for me to eat it too frequently because it does have heavy metals and mercury in general, fish. Salmon is not so bad. But meat, I don't eat at all now, even though I feed it to my dog because he doesn't have a choice. And many friends just find it eccentric and funny. But if you want to try it just for the sake of just kind of either proving me wrong or wanting to make your health better or go down to optimal body weight, try it and see how you feel. I'm going to share my screen again. So these are the foods to limit. We know why we want to limit meat because it does have high calories. We also know why we want to limit cheese and milk products because they actually increase the potential of us gaining weight. It also is full of phthalates and meat too. Phthalates are chemical compounds that are basically in pretty much everything that that is made, from packaging to plastic to oils, industrial goods, anything, toys, toys for our dogs, or any plastic bottles. All those have phthalates, and they're very harmful, and they also increase our propensity to gain body weight. Think about you drinking water from glass or plastic bottles, right? Those are simple things that you can change. It is not your fault that you may have been actually having problems with body weight. And if you don't, feel lucky. And if you want to maintain it, these are the ways to maintain your body weight. So sugar, cheese, meat, fish, and starches. Fish, occasionally, that's my little weakness, once a month, twice a month at the most. Preservatives and additives are serious problems. They alter our biochemistry and our metabolism. You have to try to stay, or don't have to, but you try to stay around the periphery of any grocery store. Anything that is in the aisles is actually not as ideal and optimal for you. And try to, sometimes I make Thai food, stir fry or pad Thai, and I go to the store and I try to buy sauces that are pre-made, and then I look at the labels, and there's so many chemicals and preservatives that I usually end up going on the internet and looking up how to make it myself, and then we put in bottle or freezer and use, let's say, some sort of Asian stir fry sauce for the next 3 months or 6 months. Just take it out of the freezer. So remember that the less processed food you eat and the more you read labels and the less chemicals and names that you cannot read you eat, the better. Some people, when I kind of talk to them about food and diet, get confused and they say, so what do you eat? Like, he told me that I should eat milk products, meat. There is so much to eat. And there are so many cookbooks these days and so many recipes on the internet, it'll blow your fuses. When we actually had our 3 months with our friends who were in COVID isolation with us in Maui, we started searching online for recipes and we loved it. And it was so incredible how often you can find gems online that we didn't know about. And if you really like meat, I have actually one alternative for you that is somewhat processed. It's a little bit of a gray zone. I call it, it's called Beyond Meat. And Beyond Meat is actually pea protein meat, and it tastes fantastic. They have burgers and they have sausages. So if you crave the flavor, once in a while, I would add it into Thai food, or we would have a burger. We also make homemade pasta and breads. In the past, a year ago, I would not be eating pasta regularly, and now I do, and I still am able to keep normal body weight. The thing is that you have to make it from whole grain, ideally, whole wheat or whole grain, and it has to have fiber. So I talked about phthalates again. So these are the sources of phthalates. Even the tubing in milking machines and packaging and industrial food processing actually does lead to phthalate contamination. Butter, eggs, again. Canned food. Canned food is another kind of area that I try to avoid. And you don't necessarily need to be eccentric or kind of like 100%, but you need to be aware that if you have a choice of eating fresh food and canned food, go for the fresh food. If you're camping and you need to have a can, it's okay. But just basically reducing some of the canned food and meat can hugely reduce your phthalates levels. So it's important and interesting. My friends who were just visiting for the last 2 weeks here, we always have someone visiting. Every day, not every day, but sometimes they like to open a can of tuna, and they asked me about it. And it's really hard for me not to say that, well, tuna has mercury and cans are not really good for us. But at the same time, I don't want to look like a smart ass. So I always struggle between, do I share it with my friends because I care about them, or do I just shut up and keep it all to myself? It's hard. And sometimes people may get offensive or they will get really pissed off. I've seen that too. So I'm kind of trying to go in the middle somewhere. Protein is another kind of quandary, because many people say, and even nutritionists used to tell us, protein is super important for us and we can't really be protein depleted. And then I started asking questions, how come cows and horses and other animals are so muscular and they don't eat any meat? And how come I have been mainly plant-based in the last, 6 months and probably even longer, and I have not lost any muscle mass? I have not lost any muscle mass. I'm lean. I'm not necessarily a bodybuilder type, but I don't feel like I'm weaker or I'm losing muscle and I'm emaciated. Research has confirmed that it is actually good to a degree for us to be slightly protein starved, that it actually activates the sirtuins and other enzymes that are actually good for longevity. It's similar to fasting. The body actually activates on the level of regeneration when we fast. Plant-based diet can provide protein, so don't be afraid. And they say that the protein powders are not that great and healthy. They're, number one, they're processed. Many of them are dairy-based and milk-based. And if they're not, to make them affordable, they often come from China, and who knows what is in those powders. Some Chinese manufacturers in the past were not afraid, or they didn't hesitate to put melamine in baby food. Don't trust that every protein powder is going to be what it says on the label. So slight deficit of protein may be actually healthy. Bread. I love bread, but I never buy bread from the store. It may seem that we don't have time for bread making and pasta making and whatever else making, granola making. But we do. We can do it during watching TV, or you can take an iPad to your kitchen and make it. It has to be whole wheat. There's a huge difference between white flour bread, sourdough bread, and whole wheat sourdough bread. White flour bread is delicious, amazing, crazy good, but it also is not good for us. You can have it once in a while, but observe and watch what's going to happen with your body. You'll get sleepy, you'll get tired, you'll go into this insulin spike, and then you'll crash. It's not good for our body to go through these spikes, whether it's sugar or whether it's white flour. Whole wheat bread is actually really good too. It's not as tasty, but it is good. And if you use it with an avocado toast or some almond butter or something like that, a little bit of honey, it's great. In the past, I talk a lot about supplements, and for dogs, we have Fabulous 4, vitamins, minerals, omegas, and probiotics, and you can look at our website. When it comes to human supplements, you should at least kind of address those 4 categories. We also do cleanse once every 6 months for my dog and myself. But remember that not every supplement is what they say it is. And that's what kind of prompted me to make dog supplements That's why I do take the vitamins, minerals, and omegas from my dog. I share with my dog. And when it comes to probiotics, they're very specific for dogs, so I take my own. Manufacturers sometimes are acquired by big companies. There are some brands, and I have a rule that I don't name any brands when I speak negatively about them. But there's some brands that have been or had been considered very holistic and very good quality, and then they were acquired by big corporations. And I try to support the smaller companies. I think that it embraces or it supports diversity, and I trust them more. Because if you're passionate about nutrition and dogs and love health, then it's different than when you're answering to the shareholders and try to make a buck, right? So that's why I really pay careful attention to where I buy my supplements. Vitamin B12 and iron, super important, especially if you're on plant-based diet. Iron, I solve it really easily by using a cast iron pan. And if you are questioning what your mineral levels are, and minerals are super important, the body cannot make them. Some vitamins the body cannot make. The body cannot make omega-3s. Those are super important for healthy nutrition. So vitamin B12 and iron are to be supplemented. B12 I like the liquid form, excuse me, and then iron from cast iron pan and making some. Yesterday I made zucchini latke, and I fried them on a little bit of oil and cast iron pan. So I hope I got my iron. Wine. Shall we drink wine and alcohol? Alcohol, as hard alcohol, liquor, are empty calories. And also it's probably not that good for us, even though once in a while I do have my gin and tonic once every 2 weeks, maybe. It's delicious, especially with good tonic. And I know some of you like wine or beer. I'm not saying that we should not drink it, but beware of two things. It does have a lot of calories. And if you are trying to reduce your body weight, then reducing wine consumption or beer consumption is definitely a good way to go. Some people say that they drink wine, red wine, especially because of resveratrol. And resveratrol is a very good antioxidant that also activates anti-aging enzymes. But you'd have to drink a gallon of wine plus. I don't really know exactly how much it is, but a lot to get the doses that are really making a difference. So it may be better for you to take resveratrol in a supplement. I will not be suggesting any particular brands at this point, even though I do take resveratrol. You may want to do research online and see what is available. I take it with oil with my omegas. So I put my omegas, Feel Good Omega, on a tablespoon, and then I put the resveratrol powder on top of it. And what else? So wine, go with moderation. And it's funny, sometimes people, since I was very young, I was a little bit against drinking too much alcohol. I don't really know whether I had some sort of experience of seeing drunk people in Czech Republic. Then it wasn't that difficult. Everybody likes beer, and you have guys kind of stumbling on the street once in a while. So maybe that was it. But it's hard to notice that I have some people in my life who don't think they're alcoholics, but if they don't have their glass or bottle every day, they're anxious. And I don't dare to actually tell them or suggest that they should probably try to stop or maybe get some treatment. But it's heartbreaking because the transition from casual drinking to alcoholism is very, very slow and hard to reverse. Kids and food. I couldn't resist. It's similar to dogs and food. My sister's late husband, who died about 10 years ago of a brain tumor, was a chef. And my two nephews, Lucas and Adam, grew up on gourmet food. Everything that was put on the table was to eat. If they didn't want to eat it, it was taken away. They didn't get anything else. And guess what happened? They always ate everything that was put on the table. And I see so many parents struggling with feeding their kids, and I see so many kids on white starchy pizza, white flour junk with cheese and sugar and all that stuff. And we have a really serious problem with obesity. And when I have a conversation with these parents, they say, they wouldn't eat anything. Well, they would. But the problem is that we somehow created a habit of giving them something else when they don't want to eat the veggies. I wouldn't make it a fuss. I really regret one thing, that I couldn't have, or I can have children, but I couldn't, I decided not to have children, or didn't get the opportunity, or the universe didn't give me the opportunity. I wish I could try it, because I swear to God, I'm convinced that kids will actually eat what they're given if we don't give them alternatives and if we train them that way. And the same it is with dogs. And my grandma was a really lovely woman, but when we didn't eat food, she gave us candies and chocolate, especially my sister. She loved these sweet candies, sweet chewy candies. And it was bad. My dad got really mad with her. And he called it monkey love, actually, this kind of approach. When you do something for others, it's not good for them, but you do it out of love. It's monkey love. So be careful about monkey love, and please have an argument with me about kids not eating what is given in front of them, because I don't know one healthy kid that will actually starve to death. But when you create a habit, it's really hard to break, because starches and sugar and cheese and pizza and all this stuff is very addictive, and they will always choose that. I'm sorry, I dare to say that if you have a picky kid, it is your fault. And I'm actually really pushing the limit now, but it is up to you to teach your kids what to eat. And if you have doubts, let's have a conversation. I don't mind going on Facebook Live once in a while with you and having a really good, healthy conversation, and maybe even an argument. So I have one more good news before we start, or before we stop, I mean. And that is that genetics in health and longevity are only about 10 to 15%. They have done some really interesting things. Genetically identical yeast can have doubled the lifespan from each other. The mother can live half of the lifespan of the daughter yeast. Okay, I know it's just yeast, but it tells you that the genes don't matter as much as the conditions that the yeast is in. And that's called epigenetics. And we can affect and influence our health and our life and longevity by food and other circumstances. Lack of stress, love, touch, doing what we love, being content, creating good life. And that's what this is about. I'm not a nutritionist, but I am really passionate about, I'm a dog nutritionist. I'm not a official human nutritionist, but I'm really passionate about human nutrition, because I don't like people to suffer. I don't like some of the people in my life being embarrassed or feel bad about not being able to maintain their body weight or being unhealthy. It breaks my heart. It also limits my connection with them, because sometimes I feel bad for being normal body weight, and I'm very grateful for that, but I'm not cocky about it, and I don't blame other people for not being normal body weight. It is just hard for everyone. So let's try a little bit more, and let's assume, and let's not assume, but let's accept that it is about genes, but largely about how we conduct our life and how we actually are aware of our habits and evolution, and why we crave food and why we are the way we are. We can do our best, and we may fail, and we may not always accomplish our goals. But if we try, at least we try. And if we have a conversation, and if we are not ashamed of saying, hey, we have a problem, then it's much easier to address. There is one creature in the world that has the longest lifespan, and that's Greenland shark. Greenland shark is, based on scientific estimate, known to live 500 years. It matures at 150 years. So there's a huge potential of live creatures and animals to live long life. And I think that there's a huge potential of us humans to kind of start tapping into the knowledge and science of longevity. But without addressing food, without really embracing what nature intended, and that is to eat whole food and healthy food and stay away from industrially produced junk, we will not be able to achieve longevity. So thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. And we will be completing this Facebook Live in 7 minutes. Alicia.
Hi, Peter. Thanks so much. We do have a couple of questions and also a little bit of feedback from the community. The first comment is from Marika. She says, story of my life. I want to share my wisdom for dogs and people, but I'm afraid of offending people. So she was just reiterating what you said. It's very difficult sometimes, especially with those we're closest to. And then the question we have is from Savita. Her question is grains. Can you specify what kind is best, or maybe what you prefer?
I know that some of you may be sensitive to gluten, and it may be there are many different reasons for that. It may be the chemicals that are used for ripening wheat. So number one, or it may be gluten protein itself. But number one, choose organic whenever possible, because there are fewer chemicals, even though organic doesn't mean that there are no chemicals. We know that from research again. I like to basically embrace any whole wheat and don't have any sensitivity, but you may want to try it. And the fun part is that Vitamix actually has this little attachment that actually makes flour from grain. So if you want to make pasta or bread, you can actually put it in Vitamix if you have Vitamix and make your own flour, which is actually much richer in vitamins because it's the whole grain that you grind and use immediately. So I wouldn't really, grain. There's actually one more thing. So any of the oats and wheat and sorghum and I can't even remember now because I've been talking for an hour, but any of these grains are good. Rice is a little bit of a problem. I talk about rice. It is high in arsenic, especially when it comes to Asia. And if you do use rice, again, whole wheat, whole grain rice would be better, not whole wheat, whole grain. I hope this answers the question.
Excellent, thank you. And another comment we have is from Robin. Robin says, we use your supplements and do the cleanse every 6 months. So big thanks to Robin for trusting our products for your dog and your two-legged family members as well. And the next question we have is from Diane. Diane posted the question when you were talking about FIAF, let's see, to do with fasting and the negative impact milk can have on the body and burning fat. Yes. So her question is it just the fat content in milk, or is it the lactose, or maybe a combination of both? Is there anything you can expand upon in the role that dairy plays with that issue?
To be honest, I don't know what is part of it. I think that it's just milk products in general, but there's probably more details somewhere. We try to find out. It is actually a really good question. I don't know. I also know that milk is actually, milk is not consumed by any mammals except humans past weaning. And I think that actually is a giveaway that it is not ideal for us. Some ethnic groups actually have less of an ability to digest milk. But I think that milk in general is not good for us. Sorry to say that. And when it comes to calcium, vegetables and plants have plenty of calcium. And if you really want to be sure, for dogs, we have Green Min, and I use Green Min myself as well. We will be launching a human supplement line because so many our clients actually take the animal line. So I thought finally and my family does as well. I thought I may as well just capsulate and offer it in human form. But going back, yeah, milk is just not, it produces mucus. It is not, it has phthalates. The cows don't always get the best feed, and that all gets excreted in the milk. PCBs are in milk. Milk is just concentrated nutrition, but also concentrated problem when it comes to toxins. And I do much better without milk, to be honest. And we can try. And nobody's saying that you can't eat or drink milk. Just try, test it out, and see how you feel if you don't. There's also one more thing that I wanted to say, that you can make nut milks. There is actually a really great device. It costs about $80 or $100. It's called Almond Cow. And Almond Cow is an alternative for using store-bought almond or nut milk, because nut milk comes in boxes, and the boxes are lined with foil. So you're again exposing yourself to phthalates when you're buying the store-bought milk. The other problem is plastic and pollution and garbage. You buy almonds, it'll cost you a fraction of the price, and it's so much fun. You soak the almonds overnight or just for a few hours, and then you throw it in the machine, and in 3 minutes or so, you have milk. You have a full jar of milk. It's unbelievable.
We're seeing a lot of comments from the community. Many people are agreeing with you that they also don't consume dairy for the reasons that you mentioned, as well as issues in the dairy farming industry, perhaps with treatment of animals.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard, the biggest conflict of my life is the fact that I love dogs, and dogs need meat, and that I don't really have a choice. If there was some sort of meat replacement for dogs that would be plant-based, I would jump on it right away. But so far, no good news. Like, we just don't really have that replacement, and it may not come. Like, nature basically intended dogs to eat meat. I don't think that we can fiddle around with that.
Mm-hmm. And we are almost at time. So the last, the last thing I want to mention is from Stephanie. It's not a question, more so a comment. Her comment is: the documentary Forks Over Knives, Game Changers, and What the Health are all good resources, as well as the book that you mentioned by Dr. Greger, How Not to Diet. I've watched the first two myself online. I think they're on Netflix and they were great. So if the community has anything they want to post, whether it's names of books they find helpful on health, or maybe these sorts of great documentaries, that would be a lovely way for the community to contribute and interact. And to round off today's Facebook Live, are there any other books or maybe documentaries that you wanted to mention in addition to How Not to Diet?
Oh my God, there are so many different books. I like Lifespan by Dr. David Sinclair. I like Sapiens, which actually kind of talks more about our societal evolution and why things happen. And then there is a second book, which is called Homo Deus, and that is really amazing. And I will top it up by something totally different, because I was talking about healthy emotions and a healthy emotional life. And Esther Perel, who is a psychologist, has amazing books on relationships. And one of them is called Mating in Captivity. So if you've been with your partner, husband, wife, whoever, for some time, this is just like a little icing on the cake, because it's a great book to learn how to continue the relationship in the best way possible, and make it last for a long, long time. Anyway, have a wonderful day and evening, and we will be online next week again, and we'll be talking about animal health. Don't really know what the topic will be yet, but I'll keep you posted. Okay, take care. Bye-bye. Thank you, Alicia, by the way.